Ready to be inspired? Let's begin with sitting. Again, finding a comfortable sitting position, ideally sitting up on something. Take a moment to snuggle, get nicely grounded. Let the heart open, the shoulders float back and down. The hands relaxing, either under the thighs or folded into the lap. The chin not down but in, so the ears are above the shoulders. Tongue to the roof of the mouth, just behind your teeth. Eyes either closed or cast down on the floor in front of you. Take a few moments to notice the breath. Allow each breath to rise and fall. Perhaps noticing to yourself, breathing in as you breathe in, and breathing out as you breathe out. Or even more simply, in and out. About 3 more breaths. And opening your eyes, you can lean back to release the legs. And you can shake the legs, puff up the chest. Or if your knees bother you, can massage the knees and circle the ankles as well. Just helping get the blood flowing again. So this practice will work predominantly the spine, but we'll also examine a few concepts such as functional yoga versus yoga aesthetics, and a concept called anti-fragility. But we can do that while we're in the postures. So we're going to start with the back bend. We're going to start with the Sphinx pose. So for Sphinx pose, come onto your belly. Bring any bolsters that you have to the front of the mat with you. Begin by clasping the elbows, walk the elbows out in front of you until the elbows are a little bit in front of the shoulders so you can relax here. You can allow the head to hang down. If that's too much for the neck, you can keep the head up, or maybe rest your head into your hands, or rest your head onto a block. But notice how this feels in the lower back. We do have a targeted area for this pose, and it is the lower lumbar spine area. If this is too much, walk the elbows more forward, or you can rest your upper body onto a bolster. If even that is too much, simply do this with the arms straight overhead, lying on your belly. Be aware there is sensation, but it's not sensational. There's a stress, but it's not the deepest back bend you'll have ever done. Time is more important than intensity. So our three principles of the Yin style of practice apply here. We come to that first edge, where you feel something. And then we become still. And we hold here for time. Remember, if the edge ever becomes painful, if the sensations ever become sharp, burning, stabbing, tingly, electrical, then you're too deep, or you've been holding for too long. It'd be wise to back off or even come out of the pose. But a dull, achy sensation is kind of to be expected. We want to feel something back there. We are stressing the tissues. And we allow that stress to soak in. There's two grand approaches to yoga. The first is called aesthetic yoga. And there the focus is on how we look in a posture. This is where a lot of alignment cues are demanded of the students. Precise direction as to where the feet should point, how the knees should line up, where the hands should be, how the shoulders should be. And aesthetics can be important for some activities. If you're a gymnast, a dancer, many athletes, how they look while they're doing their performance is very important. The other grand approach to yoga is called functional. In a functional approach to a yoga class, we don't use the body to get into a pose. We use the pose to get into the body. Which means we don't care what shape you're in or how you look. What we're trying to get is sensation. The posture is in service to the sensation. So here in Sphinx, we're trying to create a sensation in the lower back. Whether the arms are more forward, whether you're propped up on a bolster, that's irrelevant. Are you feeling it? Take about 3 more breaths here and just notice the sensations in the targeted area, the lower back. We want to come out slowly. So ease on down. Turn your head to one side, rest your cheek on your palms. Whichever way you turn that head, slide that knee alongside you on the floor to release the lower back. And pause here for a moment. Close your eyes and just feel the echo, the rebound of that previous pose. You can linger here for a few more moments if you like. But when you feel it's ready, or your time, come into child's pose. Just ease on back to sitting on your heels. You can rest your forehead onto your hands, or you can have your hands beside the feet. Just a counter movement for the spine. Take a moment to relax here. And then slowly, which remember means not fast, slowly start to roll up. until you're sitting on your heels. And this is a good place to prepare for the next pose, which is called the saddle. Now first we want to check to see if saddle's available to you. If you already know the saddle pose, feel free to go right into it. But if saddle is new to you, let's first check to see how you feel in the ankles. If sitting on your heels is too much stress for the ankles, you can put some padding underneath there, maybe a towel, a blanket, create a bit of an arch there. The next thing is check how your knees feel. If this is too much for the knees, one option is to stack some cushions up between your feet, sit up a bit higher. The higher up you sit, the less flexed the knees are. That might make this pose more accessible. If no matter what you do, the ankles and the knees complain, this is probably not a good pose for you. If saddle doesn't work for you, then just do Sphinx pose again. It'll still get the main targeted area of the lower back. But as we come into saddle, we're going to add a few other targeted areas. So from saddle, the next stage, if you're okay sitting on your heels, is to walk your hands backwards. Now this looks a bit like a mini camel pose. So you can think of this position here as camel or saddle, doesn't really matter. We've got the stress happening in the ankles and the knees. You also now start to feel a little bit of a tugging along the quadriceps here, but as we walk the hands backwards, we're getting into the main target area, which is the lower back. So track 1 students who are beginners to yoga or maybe just naturally don't have much range of motion in the lower back, you might want to stay here. But we'll be here for a while. If this becomes too much, then you can come onto your stomach and do another round of the Sphinx pose. Track 2 students, if it's available, you can come onto your elbows. So now it's a deeper back bend. You're getting more stretch into the hip flexors, the quadriceps, but you have to make a choice of what to do with your head. You can let the head hang back and rest on the top of the head, but that's pretty deep for the neck. So if that's too much, you can support the head with blocks, or you can have a bolster along the whole spine. You can lay down on the spine, in the bolster, and now the head can relax and you can stay here easily for more time. If you are supported, you may add clasping the elbows, and now you'll start to get a nice stress into the lower belly and into the shoulders as well. So track 2 students, you can just hang out here. The track 3 students who are naturally very flexible, you can come all the way down to the floor. If you can easily come onto the floor again, you can clasp the elbows. But if in clasping the elbows, you create any feelings of lightheadedness, tingliness or pins and needles in the arms, it's better to rest your arms onto your head or onto a block. If that doesn't get rid of the tingliness, then just bring the arms back down. Now from a functional point of view in yoga, we're targeting many areas here. The primary area that I'd like to get is in the lower back, so I'm getting a bit of that. It's not the deepest back bend, but we're also getting a nice stress to the ankles, into the knees, along the hip flexors, lower belly, into the shoulders. So this is working many different targeted areas. But often students will wonder, where should my knees be? Should my knees be together? Should they be apart? What happens if my knees are up? Should they be down? From a functional point of view, the answer is, I don't know. I don't really care where your knees are. What does it feel like in the pose? What does it feel like if your knees are together? Does that make the pose more doable or less doable? How about if the knees are apart? We want to feel sensation. So maybe with the knees apart, you get more sensation in the target areas. Maybe with the knees together, you get more sensation on the top of the hips. It doesn't really matter what you look like. It's what do you intend with the pose, and are you achieving that goal? But from a functional yoga point of view, we have an intention, the target areas are being stressed, and then we pay attention. Am I getting the stress in the targeted area? And that requires us to stay present throughout the yoga practice. And the mind will wander. You'll start to wonder about things like, what am I going to have for lunch or for dinner? Should I have that burrito that's in the fridge? It's getting kind of green now. Maybe it's not, it's been there 3 weeks. Maybe I should throw it out. So instead of thinking about those things, you come back to, what am I feeling? Am I getting the stress still? Maybe I need to go deeper. Maybe I need to back off. So we pay attention, keeping in mind our intention. Let's just stay here for about 3 or 4 more breaths if that's appropriate for you. Again, you don't need permission to come out of the pose early if it's too much. Now in a moment we will come out. Not yet, but in a moment. For those who are doing the Sphinx pose, you can just lower down as we did before. For people who are still in the saddle, there's a couple of options here. The very flexible track 3 students simply lift the knees and walk the feet out. If that's not available to you, the other approach is to come up the way you went down by propping yourself up in the elbows, but many people need a forklift or a crane to get up this way. So the other option, the preferred option, is maybe just to roll to one side. Pause here for a moment, because you're now getting older. You feel it. You can slowly, with a groan, straighten one leg, another leg. And whichever way you came out, just come onto either your back or your stomach and let the legs be straight. We asked a lot of the knees just now. So you can release the knees, maybe tighten them for a moment and release them, tighten and release them. Just until the legs feel kind of normal again. We did the Sphinx pose in the saddle, which are relatively mild extensions of the lower back. We're now going to come into a deeper extension, for some of us, called the seal pose. But we'll begin again in Sphinx pose. So come back to Sphinx, wherever it was that you left off in Sphinx before. Clasping the elbows, walk the elbows a little bit forward. It doesn't matter if you sink in the shoulders, lift the shoulders up, it's not really going to affect the lower back. So sometimes you can sink into this, sometimes you can lift out of it. Again, if it's too much for your head, you can support the head into your hands. But if you find now that there's not much stress in the lower back anymore, you can go a bit deeper into this Sphinx pose by propping yourself up, either on bolsters or blocks, just to create a little bit more curve in the lower back. Once you feel that sensation there, again, you can become still, hold here for time. But for some students, especially track 2 and track 3, who naturally have more range of motion in the lower back, they're still not feeling too much stress here. So another option now is to bend the knees. Let the heels come towards the buttock. Again, the question is often asked, where should the knees be? Should they be together? Should the knees be apart? The answer is yes. No. Maybe. Who knows? What's it like for you? So experiment. If there's too much stress in the lower back, maybe having the knees together is okay. On the other hand, for some people, it's preferred to have the knees apart. We need to feel some stress, but it should never be painful. We do go past our comfort zone in the Yin style of practice. But it should never be so uncomfortable that you can't stay here. We want to be able to linger. If that means the legs straight, fine, stay like that. But then for the few people who are cursed by being flexible, and they still don't feel anything here, you can come up into the seal pose. You straighten the arms, turn the hands outward, you can lock the elbows. Now there's much deeper back bend happening. If the hands are too far forward, it's a struggle to stay here. You have to really use muscles to stay here. So if this is your seal, it's better to be on your elbows. You're still getting the same amount of curve in the lower back. It's just our ego wants to do seal, to straighten the arms, but it's not really effective. If you're in seal, the hands are quite close towards you. Eventually, maybe the hands are right underneath the shoulders and just hanging in here. So you're getting that deep stress in the lower back, but it's tolerable. So let this soak in for about another minute here. So our intention is still stressing the lumbar, extending the spine there. Then we pay attention. Are you feeling it? If it's too much, back off. If it's not enough, again, some track 3 students may want to even bend the knees here to get more stress. But the intention isn't to get maximum stress. Because remember, time is more important than intensity. The intention is to be able to stay here longer. About 3 more breaths. Then again, slowly, which means not fast. Walk the hands forward. Maybe slide onto your elbows. Slowly coming down. Turn your head to the other side. Slide that knee alongside you on the floor. Enjoy the rebound. When you feel it's time, head back to child's pose. And this time on your way to child's pose, if you're craving a little bit more release for the spine, you do a few easy cats. Let the spine undulate up and down a few times. Since we're not muscularly warmed up, they don't have to be deep cats. Just a little movement should be sufficient. When you're ready, sitting back in the heels. Child's pose. And this time, as you roll up to sitting, pay attention to what it feels like to roll up. Notice what's happening along the length of your spine. Now it's time to move the spine in some new directions. We've been doing extensions for the last while. So now grab a cushion or something to sit up on. We're going to come into a half butterfly. In a half butterfly, you can bring your right foot in, extend the left leg out to the left. So we've got a bit of abduction happening through here. We're going to work the hips a little bit, but again, our primary targeted area for this is going to be the spine. So turn and face the left leg. You can use your right hand to pull you around a little bit. Then to your own degree, allow yourself to fold forward. Just until you find that first edge. You naturally stop. The intention here is not to get your head to the foot. It's not to engage the leg muscles. It's to relax, soften, and come down to where you naturally stop. And then we hold here for time. If you're sitting up tall and I asked you to come forward and you say, I have, well, it's usually just a sign that you've got very tight hamstrings. Bend the knees a bit. You can even put a block or a bolster underneath the thighs so the muscles can relax. And that may allow you to tilt more from the hips so gravity can draw you down. So you want to be in a place where gravity is doing the work. We're not pulling, we're not engaging the muscles, we're just hanging out here. Again, the targeted area here is really along the spine. So if you're feeling this in the spine, you're doing the pose. You may get a bonus stretch in the hamstring, that's cool. You may also find if you're not feeling very much, especially for the very flexible students, the track 3 students who just flop down and bring their chest to the thigh, try bringing the head to the knee and really tuck the chin in. You might find that has a different sensation all along the fascia of the back. And finally, just for the track 3 students, you can reach out with a hand or two, hold the foot. You're not pulling, it's not active, it's not muscular. But just by holding the foot flexed, you add a bit more fascial tension through the back of the leg, and you may feel this along the spine as well. So we just want to get to the place where we feel something and we become still. We're going to hold here for time. It's okay if the knee is bent a bit. Again, don't worry about the aesthetics of the pose. From a functional point of view, what does this pose feel like? We're cultivating stress. Now to this, we can add a little different type of stress to the spine. We can add a side bend. Come up a little bit, rest your elbow on the thigh, rest your head in your hand. You can bring the right hand behind your back. So now we're kind of twisting a bit, adding a side bend. Track 2, you can slide the elbow further away. And then if you have no neck issues, you can actually release the head, let the left ear come to left shoulder. Track 3, the hand can be inside the leg. And eventually, you'll turn around and rest your head on your shin and look up at the ceiling and think beige. When are they going to paint the ceiling beige? That'd be a nice color. Eventually, maybe not this lifetime, but eventually you might get there. But again, that's not the intention. The intention is to feel a stress through the whole side body, especially along the side of the spine. So for several breaths, hang out here and see if you can soften. Releasing the muscles allows the stress to get into the deeper connective tissues. For the last few breaths, if you'd like, you can do the option of bringing the arm alongside the ear, lightly resting your fingers on the foot. Again, it's not a pulling. That may accentuate the side body stretch. But for some people, bringing that arm alongside the ear creates tingling feelings in the fingers. So if you get tingling there, better just keep the hand behind the back. About 3 more breaths. And come up slightly just to release, and again, fold over that straight leg. Just a couple more breaths here. And ease on up. You can push the floor away to help you come up. And again, do this slowly, lean back. Straighten the bent leg, and engage the leg muscles, draw the legs together, and maybe just pause there in shock and awe, or maybe puff the chest up a little bit. The appropriate option is just to lie down and take a short shavasana for a minute, or if you're craving a little bit more release for the spine, maybe the tabletop a few times. Track 3 students may prefer the slide, lifting the hips up with the legs straight. Whatever feels appropriate for you. There's no rush to do the other side. But when you feel ready to do the other side, extend the right leg out to the right, left foot comes in. If this bothers the bent knee at any time, you can always support the leg with a block. Again, when the hips are flexed more, it's a little bit easier to externally rotate, so take the stress out of the knee. Then we turn and face the straight leg. You can use the left hand to pull you around a bit. And then to your own degree, allow yourself to come forward, just until you naturally stop. Just find that first edge. And again, if you're very tight, bend the knee. You can bend the knee a lot. You can have the foot flat on the floor. Whatever it takes to allow you to come forward enough so that gravity does the work of drawing you down. If the knee's bent a little bit, having a block there helps to relax the muscles so we can soften here. Again, the intention is not to get the chest to the thigh, the head to the foot. The intention here is more of a rounding so we can target the spine. So let the head hang down towards the knee. Again, you can emphasize this a bit more by drawing the chin into the chest. And you can experiment with that. If you have the head up, where do you feel this? And if you really pull the chin in, you notice how that changes the experience. Because there's a fascial continuity along the whole back side of the body. Track 3 students may lightly pull, not actively pulling, but just keep the foot flexed to increase the sensation. But again, time is more important than intensity. So just come to the place where you feel something. pause here. You're certainly welcome just to stay in this shape. If you want to add the side bend, you can lift up a little bit, bring your right elbow to the thigh, rest your head in the palms. You bring the left hand behind you. You can rest your head in your fist. As the body opens up, maybe you can slide the elbow a bit further away. There's a sense that we're turning to look up as well. In track 3, maybe release the head, let the right ear hang towards the right shoulder. The arm can be lightly against the knee to help twist you a bit. But as much as you can, try to soften here. Again, we're using the pose to get into the body. The pose will create a stress. So we just attend to that. It doesn't matter whether the feet go in or out, whether the knees pointing up or not. All that's aesthetic. Just be where you can feel a nice stress. You get it through the back of the leg, along the spine. With the hand tucked behind the back, you may also get a bit of a stress into the shoulder. That's a bit of a bonus. In Yin Yoga, we like the stress to soak deeper than the muscles. And the muscles are 30% fascia, so they will get a benefit as well. It's not true to say the muscles don't benefit from a Yin practice. They do. The muscles just won't get stronger, but they will get longer, as will all the other connective tissues. But when the muscles are tight, they tend to take the stress away from the other tissues. So as much as you can, try to relax muscularly, soften into the shape. If you can't soften, you may be too deep. You should back up a level. And some people prefer the option of the arm alongside the ear. And that may emphasize the side body stretch more. But again, for some people, that creates a tingling feeling. So it'd be better for them to have the hand behind the back. 3 more breaths here. And come up slightly, just to release. Fold over the leg one more time for a couple of breaths. And pushing the floor away. Ease on up. Feeling that sense of fragility. Lean back, release the bent knee. Engage the leg muscles, draw the legs together. And again, just pause. Or you can puff the chest up a little bit of a counter movement. Or again, just lie still. Or move in whatever way feels organic. Tabletop or slides. You can probably guess what's coming next. We did half butterfly to the left, half butterfly to the right. Now we're going to do the straddle pose. Both legs apart. So separate your legs wide apart until they form a straight line, which is like a 16-year-old cheerleader. You all remember when you can do that? Me neither. Just move your legs apart until they can't go any further, and then notice how this feels. Again, sitting up on something just to help tilt the hips so gravity will be able to take you forward. You might want to grab a block or a bolster. Come forward, maybe rest your head in your hands. Now, again, if you're really tight in the adductors, and I ask you to come forward and you're sitting back like this saying, that's it, this is all I've got, then bend your knees. It's okay. You're still a good person. Bend your knees so much, maybe even you have your feet on the floor. And that's going to allow you to release from the hips enough so now gravity can bring you forward. This is not cheating. Who cares what you look like? We're trying to feel something. There's a functional approach to this, not aesthetics. Some people don't have to bend the knees quite so much. They bend the knees a little bit, and you can put some support underneath them. Now they can come forward. so that gravity can have you. So again, just come to that first stopping point, your first edge, and then become still. We'll stay here for time. There's a new word in the English language. It's been coined about 6-7 years ago by a writer named Nassim Taleb. It's called anti-fragility. I used the word fragile a moment ago. As we came out of the pose, we had a sense of fragility. But living organisms can also be anti-fragile. Something that's fragile breaks easily. Think of a wine glass. If a wine glass gets knocked off a table, it shatters when it hits the ground. But think of a pewter beer mug, some beer stein from Germany. When it falls, it's robust. When a beer mug that's made of steel or pewter hits the ground, it just bounces. And inanimate objects tend to share that quality. They're either fragile or they're robust. But organic, living organisms are anti-fragile. We gain through stress. Where stress may break a wine glass, stress, appropriately placed, will increase the strength of our tissues. We need to stress tissues for them to be healthy. Yes, you can do too much. If you overstress the tissues, you pull them apart. The tissues wear out, degenerate. It's called osteoarthritis or arthritis. This is an overuse disease. You've overstressed the tissues. But if we apply no stress to the tissues atrophy. The body recycles the tissues and doesn't create new tissues. Osteoporosis is an underuse disease. We're not stressing the bones enough. They become thin and hollow. So we need to find a position between those two extremes. Kind of like a Goldilocks position, where it's not too little and it's not too much. When we're in that Goldilocks position, then we're actually making our tissues anti-fragile. We're making them healthier. Unfortunately, to do that, you have to be in a place that's just beyond your comfort zone. In yoga, we're feeling the stress. A lot of people don't feel comfortable hanging out here. But as long as it's not painful, this is an important part of exercise. Comfort comes at the expense of health. As an example, it's almost impossible to find shoes now that don't have arch supports. But the human foot was designed to walk and run, and there's ligaments in here, the bones have an arch, and every time you walk, you stress those ligaments. And that makes these tissues thicker, stronger, healthier. But since we have arch supports in our feet, these tissues are not being stressed. They become fragile. They become weaker and weaker. To the point where if you lived your whole life with arch supports, you better use arch supports because your feet cannot take walking barefoot or running in bare feet for very long. You've made your feet fragile. To make your feet anti-fragile, you'd have to learn to stress them. You have to stress these tissues. And that's what we do in a functional yoga. We have an intention to stress tissues. Here, it's all through the inner legs, and it's along the spine. For a couple more breaths, notice the stress. And realize you're making these tissues less fragile through this amount of stress. Now let's come up a bit. Track 2 and 3, just come up enough that you can bring your legs together, and then fold again into a caterpillar. Track 1, for those that need a bit more of a break, come all the way up, tighten the leg muscles, and bring the legs together. Again, track 1 are for people who are just getting into Yin Yoga or naturally don't have a lot of flexibility. It's okay to follow track 1 for a few months or a few years or for a few lifetimes. Who cares what you look like when you're doing this pose? Just take a break. When you think it's safe to join us in caterpillar, legs straight, you come forward. And again, if you're very tight in the hamstrings, it's okay to bend the knees. Put blocks or some support underneath the knees, so now you can come forward enough so gravity is drawing you down. But even the track 2 and 3 students, especially the track 3 students who are, again, cursed by being so flexible, they just flop down onto the legs. They just fold in half and they say, well, what's the point of this pose? We want to feel something. I don't feel anything. Well, we say you're cursed by being flexible because you pay just as much to watch videos like this, but you don't feel it like track 1 and 2 students. But it's okay, because in the next lifetime, you're going to come back as a normal person, and then you'll understand. But if you really are track 3 students and you're not feeling anything, back off a little bit, and again, try rounding your head towards the knees. As you draw the chin in tightly to the chest, you might feel that increases the stress along the backside of the body. Or again, you can flex the feet. Don't pull. It's not muscular, but just flex the feet, hold them there. You might find that gives you a bit of juice. The other option is, if you're really flexible, you might need to separate the legs a little bit, and then you can fold down between the legs. Wherever you're feeling the edge, just go there for about 2 more minutes. Just be still and enjoy this. We need the stress to keep the tissues healthy. But in our Western culture, we really love comfort. We like comfortable food. But archaeologists and anthropologists have discovered that our ancestors used to have faces that were 15% bigger than our faces today in the modern world. And the reason is, when they were growing up, our ancestors had to chew hard food, nuts and things that weren't cooked very well. And as children chewing hard foods, it makes the jawbone thicker, stronger, and actually wider. Today, we eat very soft food. We like to chew our foods maybe 2 or 3 times and swallow. Everything is comfortable for chewing. But that meant growing up, our jaws actually got smaller. So by the time we're 20, 21, there's no space for wisdom teeth. Most people in the modern world have to have the wisdom teeth taken out because they ate comfortable food their whole life. The jaws, actually, the face got smaller. Comfort comes at the expense of health. So whether it's comfortable food or arches, we need to stress the body. So in our practice, our yoga practice, yin or yang, we need to be at the place where you feel a stress. And that's going to build an anti-fragility to the body. It's just in yin yoga, we're targeting the deep tissues, the connective tissues, the fascia, the joint capsules, the ligaments. We're applying a stress to these tissues. But 1 more minute here. Now use the word stress deliberately. Often in yoga we talk about stretching. And that may happen. When you apply a stress to a tissue, it may stretch. But the intention is to just apply a stress. Our ligaments don't stretch as much as our muscles, but the ligaments need stress just as much as our muscles. We stress the bones. We're not trying to stretch the bones. The bones don't stretch, but you still need to stress them. So it's more appropriate in yoga to talk about stressing tissues than stretching them. Even though ligaments may stretch, our intention is to stress them. 2 more breaths. And let's slowly ease our way back up. Now this time, let's come all the way down to lying on our backs. You can just pause there in stillness. Or if it feels appropriate, you can hug the knees. Well, that's going to flex the spine. We've already done that. Some people prefer windshield wipers. And that provides a little bit of extension for the spine. In terms of the 6 degrees of movement for the spine, we did the extensions, we did the flexions, we also did a side bend. So we'll finish with a twist for the spine. We'll start with an easy 2-knee twist. So you can bring the knees into your chest, drop both knees to one side, open your arm up to the other side. You can rock back and forth a few times if you like. If the knees don't quite make it to the floor, you can put a block or a bolster underneath the knees. Some people prefer the bolster between the knees. Some people like a bolster on top of the knees to help weight the knees down. If you have a sandbag, you can use that, or you can also just use a free hand to hold the knees down. If your neck's okay, you can turn and look away from the knees. But if turning your head creates any lightheadedness or dizziness, it could be because you're cutting off blood flow to the brain, in which case, don't turn your head. You can extend the arm out to the side. That may help to weight the shoulder down. But if extending the arm out creates any tingling in the fingers, that could be because you're compressing a nerve that innervates the arm, in which case, lower the arm or rest the arm onto a bolster. I like to just rest my hand onto the rib cage and let that weight the chest down. Then invite you to close your eyes. So the target area in the twist is along the spine. With the knee straight out to the side, the spine is fairly neutral. So the amount of twist is fairly equal all along the spine. But if for some reason you really wanted to work into the upper spine, you can bend the knees more. As you bend the knees more, flexing the spine, more of the twist seems to be in the upper back. On the other hand, if you wanted to target the lower back, point the knees further away from you. That creates a bit of an extension. That tends to bring the twist more into the lumbar. So it depends on your intention. Again, if you want to be neutral, a 90-degree angle between the chest and the thighs. Now for the rest of the journey, I'll be quieter and just remind you to pay attention. You can start by attending to the breath, allowing the breath to come and go. But then also notice the sensations. Where are you feeling this? For the track 3 students who need more of a twist, the one knee twist may be better. Straighten the bottom leg, keep the top knee down. If that's too much, just do the 2-knee version. About 1 more minute here. The last 2 breaths. Ride your next inhale to come back up. Pause there for a moment. Or move in whatever way feels organic. As always, there's no rush to do the other side, but when you're ready, you bring both knees into the chest, drop the knees to the other side. You can lift your hips up, move them a bit behind you, and you can rock back and forth a few times. Remember, you have lots of options. If the knees are floating, you can support the legs, or you can weight the legs down. If your neck's okay, you can turn the head away from the knees, maybe extend that arm. Again, if that creates tingling, don't extend the arm. You can experiment with the knees drawn in to bring the twist higher up the spine, the knees a bit further away to bring the twist lower into the spine, or just keep it neutral, equal along the whole length of the spine. I invite you to close your eyes, interiorize your awareness. Notice how this feels. I don't really care what variation of the twist you're doing or how you look. That's irrelevant. What does this feel like? Are you getting the sensation in the targeted area along the spine? Maybe through the top of the hip, maybe through the shoulder. If the sensation's too much, if it's painful, then back off. If it's not enough, you can go a bit deeper. Maybe do the one knee version. Your mind will wander. Remember, that's the nature of mind. The mind creates thoughts. The thoughts take us away. But remember your intention. And pay attention. Keep coming back. What are you feeling? About 3 more breaths. Use your inhale to come back to center. Pause there for a moment. Or, as always, you can move in whatever way feels appropriate. And when you're ready, our final pose, as important as everything else we've done, Shavasana, the final relaxation. So take a moment to prepare for relaxation. Again, you can put on layers, put on socks, allow yourself to stay warm. Take off anything that's tight or constricting. So take off watches, glasses, let your hair down. If you have a bolster handy, you might find it useful to put the bolster underneath the thighs. When the knees are bent a bit, it tends to flex the hips a bit, and that takes the stress out of the lower back. Release. The eyes closed. Become aware of your feet, your legs, relaxing. Relax your hips, your buttocks. Become aware of your lower back, the sacrum and the lumbar, letting go of tension, releasing deeply. Feel your middle and your upper back also relaxing, melting into the earth now. And relax your shoulders. Notice how good that feels. Do it again. Relax the shoulders. Your arms heavy. Relaxing your wrists and your hands. And draw your awareness to the neck. Release the neck and the throat. Relax the hinge of your jaw. Allowing your teeth to part slightly as you soften all your facial muscles. Your cheeks and your eyes. Even relaxing your forehead, your scalp. Allow this sense of relaxation and release to soak in deeply. Through your practice today, you stimulated your cells at a deep unconscious level. Now they're regenerating, healing. The deep wisdom of the body is helping you to become stronger, younger, whole, healthier. But all this continues at an unconscious level. All you're consciously aware of is this sense of stillness that's growing within you. There in the heart space, like a flower opening, a sense of joy blossoms. Enjoy this. Enjoy being relaxed. And as the unconscious healing continues throughout the days to come, enjoy being. And now slowly, allow your breath to lengthen. Bring a little movement to your fingers. You can circle your wrists, circle your ankles. Perhaps roll your head from side to side. Circling in both directions with the wrists and ankles. Let's reawaken with a big stretching yawn. Reach the arms over your head, interlace the fingers, turn the palms away. Take a deep inhale and open your face as wide as you can. Stretch and yawn and push and pull and reach. And as you release, roll to your left side. Bend your knees. Use your arm as a pillow. And just pause here for a moment. Enjoy the echo of your yawn. and rolling up to sitting. And thank you for sharing your yin experience.